Thank you, Travis. Good evening, viewers, and welcome to tonight's regional news. We begin with some international news. United States service members who are HIV positive cannot be discharged or barred from becoming an officer solely because they are infected with the virus. A federal judge in Virginia ruled. Advocates say it's one of the strongest rulings in years for people living with HIV. The cases involved two service members who the Air Force attempted to discharge, as well as Sergeant Nick Harrison of the D.C. Army National Guard, who was denied a position in the Judge Advocate General Corps. U.S. District Judge Leonie Brinkema said in a written order dated April 6 that her ruling bars the military from taking those actions against the plaintiffs and any other asymptomatic HIV-positive service member with an undetectable viral load because they are classified as ineligible for worldwide deployment due to their HIV-positive status. Peter Prakowski, an attorney for the plaintiffs, called it a landmark victory, probably the biggest ruling in favor of people living with HIV in the last 20 years. The military was the last employer in the country that had a policy against people living with HIV. Every other employer, including first responders, is subject to rules that prohibit discrimination based on HIV status, he said. We tell you now that Cuba voted Thursday against expelling Russia from the United Nations Human Rights Council over atrocities committed by its forces during the war in Ukraine, shifting from their previous, more cautious abstention votes to signal their open support for Moscow. Bolivia also voted against it, but more surprisingly, two of the region's heavyweights, Mexico and Brazil, abstained from the voting, along with El Salvador, Barbados, Belize, Guyana, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, showing that Latin America and the Caribbean continue to be divided in their response to the war in Ukraine. Today it is Russia, but tomorrow it could be any of the other countries, particularly nations of the South that do not bow to the interests of domination and that firmly defend their independence, Cuba's UN representative Pedro Luis said, accusing the United States of orchestrating the vote. The resolution passed in the UN General Assembly with 93 votes in favor, 24 against, and 58 abstentions, effectively suspending Russia's membership in the Council. Cuba's representative did not mention the mounting evidence of possible war crimes committed by Russian forces in Ukraine cities that prompted the vote, instead referring to death of hundreds of thousands of civilians caused by the U.S. wars. The war in Ukraine was almost absent from his speech. Pedro Luis mentioned it wants to say that the suspension of Russia's membership rights in no way favors the search for a peaceful, negotiated, and long-lasting solution to the conflict in Ukraine. Now for a final story from Venezuela. Through the efforts by the Foreign Ministry and the Embassy in Lima, the Bolivarian executive give direct attention and effective response to the cases of Venezuelan citizens in vulnerable conditions in Peru. The diplomatic source stated, Venezuelan authorities implemented all biosecurity protocols before the arrivals of the repatriated migrants, including diagnostic tests and the administrations of COVID-19 vaccines. According to official figures, since the return to the homeland plan started in 2018, more than 28,000 Venezuelan citizens who emigrated in search of better economic conditions, mainly to other South American states, have returned home. Frequently used as an argument to justify political attacks of an interfering nature, Venezuelan migration has escalated in intensity during the last few years, a situation accentuated by the effects of the unilateral coercive measures taken by the United States. Addressing the 112th Council of the International Organization for Migration, Venezuelan Foreign Minister charged that the induction of an alleged refugee crisis with an impact on neighboring cities is a central element in Washington's strategy against Venezuela. That has brought us to the end of tonight's regional news. Thank you for watching. Back to you, Travis.